Everyone, we join you on our social media channels as we give you the breaking news. The Mets have signed lefty pitcher Jason Vargas to a 2-year deal plus a club option. SNY has confirmed this news. There are reports out there. Jerry Krasnick saying the deal is a total of 16 years over the first 2 years. Bob Nightingale of USA Today saying over $15.5 million. Either way, this is what the deal is stacking up to be as the Mets get the innings eater they had sort of been looking for in order to bolster the depth on their pitching rotation, which, of course, they have plenty of arms, but those arms have had trouble in the past staying healthy. So this concludes, you would assume, a busy offseason for Mets general manager Sandy Alderson. But it begins a day of hard work for our Steve Gelbs down in Port St. Lucie. He joins us now. And, Steve, what's your reaction to the signing, and how big of a deal was it that Vargas has a past with new pitching coach Dave Eiland?
Yeah, Jonas, I'll take those in two separate parts. The reaction to the signing is this is exactly the move the Mets needed to make. I think after we saw Cashner and Garcia go off the board yesterday, this was one that you could kind of see coming. The Mets realized that they needed, especially with this market going the way it was, they needed to sign one more pitcher to really solidify that rotation, and this move certainly does that, landing Jason Vargas to that 2-year deal with the option for a third. In terms of his past and having an influence over this deal, it really did his past with Dave Eiland, who was his pitching coach in Kansas City. Dave Eiland was a real reason why the Mets were targeting Jason Vargas. Eiland, I've been told, really likes his workmanlike approach, his lunch pail mentality. It's something that Eiland is trying to bring to this Mets rotation, and he feels that Vargas is a guy that can be a really good influence on this rotation. The Mets, I know, look at this deal kind of similarly to the way that they viewed the Bartolo Colon signing a few years ago, where he can go right into the middle of that rotation and, again, give you someone that goes out and competes every 5 days. 5 of the last 8 seasons, 30 or more starts. Last year he was an all-star despite a little bit of a slide in the second half. This is a very solid signing for a team that desperately needed to have someone they could count on in the middle of that rotation.
Steve, you mentioned some similarities to Colon and how he is a pitcher and not a thrower. Also, the differences here, and maybe it benefits the staff this way, is the Mets right now have a bunch of hard-throwing righties. Other than Steven Matz, who's a lefty, he's a soft-tossing lefty, so it's a real change-up for an opposing lineup to run into Vargas as opposed to what else the Mets are throwing at you.
Yeah, 100%, Jonas, and I think especially given the uncertainty that consistently surrounds Steven Matz, it's nice to have another lefty period in that rotation, but like you said, one that's a little bit more of a soft tosser, a little bit more of a pitcher. You talk to opposing players, and as dominant as these Mets starters can be, if you see enough of the same day in, day out, major league hitters are going to be able to hit those guys. And so I think having someone that's a bit of a changeup, both in terms of the side from which they throw and the way with which they throw it, it's a bonus for this Mets team. I don't know if that was necessarily the driving force behind the signing, but it doesn't hurt.
How does this shake out with the rotation then? I know it's happened so rarely that we assume it will maybe never happen for a long stretch of time, but if all of the younger guys are healthy, now you have 6 starters. Do they go 6-man rotation? Does somebody get bumped out to the bullpen? How would this work if everybody, it's a big if everybody stayed healthy?
Well, if everybody's healthy, you've got 8 starters. I mean,
right.
If Robert Gesellman and Seth Lugo come anywhere close to where they were 2 seasons ago, then you've got yourself a nice problem. Listen, before we get into that at all, like you said, it's probably not going to happen. This rotation has too much of a history of injury to expect that everybody will stay healthy for a long stretch of time, that the entire unit will be together. That being said, I think the Mets are doing the right thing right now. They're not coddling these pitchers anymore, and I think this goes into what Dave Eiland is talking about. There are 2 spots now in the rotation, and you have to go out and win it. So Matt Harvey, Steven Matz, Zach Wheeler, go out and win yourself a job. And if you don't, yeah, maybe it's the bullpen. I mean, I know there was talk about Zach Wheeler last year moving to the bullpen. Maybe he's a guy that comes out of the bullpen. Remember, Dave Eiland is someone who moved Wade Davis into that closer's role. So I think that there's this healthy competition now. You've got your top 3, and then you use spring training to see how the back end of that rotation plays out.
Steve, are the Mets done here? It's been a very busy offseason for them, much busier than most anticipated. Do you think they're now done, or is there still a lefty reliever, or signing a lefty reliever? Is that a possibility?
I think anything's a possibility given the market. I think, if you gave truth serum to Sandy Alderson, I'm not sure that he would have expected to make this number of moves, but the market has come so far back to the Mets that you really can't help but jump in. That being said, talking to people in the Mets organization, it seems like this is it with the major league roster. There are a couple of guys they might be intrigued with on minor league signings, similar to what you saw yesterday with Matt Den Decker. So maybe there's a couple there. But I think for the most part, you would be safe to assume that this is the major league roster heading into the first action of spring.
All right, Steve, as always, we appreciate it. We look forward to your coverage throughout the day here on SNY social media channels and, of course, on the Linear Network as well later on today. Steve Gelbs from Port St. Lucie. Once again, we will continue our coverage here as we are just getting started on all of our stories Mets related today. Stay tuned to the social media channels. Updates from Port St. Lucie and spring training all day long. Daily News Live, 5 o'clock. 5:30 Loudmouths. Baseball Night in New York coming your way at 6 o'clock. And, of course, Geico Sports Night wrapping everything up on the linear side starting at 10:30 tonight. Once again, the news. Jason Vargas, a 2-year deal plus a club option to come join the Mets, bolstering that staff, the exact kind of innings eater and depth provider that Sandy Alderson had been looking for all winter long. That'll do it for us. We will see you soon the rest of the day here on all the channels of SNY.